The desert has a way of swallowing secrets. Under the burning New Mexico sun, the horizon stretches endlessly, dry winds carrying whispers that vanish before anyone can listen. In this barren landscape near the small town of Truth or Consequences, a man named David Parker Ray built a chamber of nightmares, a place that would earn him the title of the Toy Box Killer. To the casual observer, Ray seemed like a man who belonged in the desert. Born in 1939, he grew up shy, awkward, and neglected, often passed around between relatives. His father was abusive and his mother was absent, leaving young David to be raised primarily by his strict, domineering grandfather. Outwardly, he was just another small-town boy, lanky and quiet. But inside, something darker began to grow. As a teenager, David Parker Ray discovered sadomasochistic pornography, images of bound women, torture devices, and fantasies of control. While many might have turned away in discomfort, Ray lingered, fascinated. He began to sketch his own devices, cages, restraints, and tools designed not to kill, but to dominate. Over time, his imagination hardened into obsession. On the surface, Ray grew into an ordinary man. He joined the Army, learned mechanical skills, and later found work as a park ranger and mechanic. Those who knew him described him as distant but functional, someone who kept to himself. Yet behind closed doors, his fantasies festered. He collected pornography, built homemade bondage equipment, and filled notebooks with meticulous designs. By the 1990s, those fantasies had taken physical form in the most horrifying way imaginable. Ray owned a small trailer near Elephant Butte Lake, just outside Truth or Consequences. To the untrained eye, it looked like any other storage unit parked in the desert. But inside, he had constructed what he chillingly called the Toy Box. The trailer was soundproofed and fortified with steel. Its walls were lined with torture devices, whips, clamps, chains, pulleys, surgical tools, and electrical instruments. A gynecologist's chair sat at the center, equipped with leather straps to immobilize its occupant. Above it, mirrors were fixed to the ceiling so victims could see everything done to them. There were video cameras, tape recorders, and shelves filled with surgical manuals and pornography. On the door was a sign that read, "Satan's Den." Most terrifying of all was the audio tape. Before he began his crimes, Ray played a pre-recorded message for his victims. In a calm, almost casual tone, he explained exactly what would happen to them, that they would be raped, tortured, and used for his pleasure. He warned them not to resist, insisting escape was impossible. The tape set the stage, breaking their spirit before the real torment began. Ray did not work alone. His longtime girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, became his accomplice, helping lure women into the trailer and restrain them once inside. Ray's daughter, Glinda Jessie Ray, and even friends were suspected of participating in or covering up his crimes. The full scope of his depravity, and how many victims there truly were, remains a mystery to this day. The victims were often women from vulnerable backgrounds, sex workers, runaways, or women struggling with addiction. Many disappeared without anyone noticing right away. Those who did survive sometimes remembered nothing at all. Ray allegedly drugged his victims with substances that caused memory loss before releasing them back into the world, broken and confused. For years, Ray's crimes went undetected. Law enforcement had no clue that in the middle of the New Mexico desert, a man had constructed a torture chamber unlike anything they'd ever seen. But in 1999, his world began to unravel. It started with a woman named Cynthia Vigil. She was 22 years old when she encountered Ray and Cindy Hendy. They lured her with promises of drugs, then forced her into the toy box. Cynthia was chained to the gynecologist's chair, where she endured 3 days of unimaginable terror. She listened to Ray's chilling tape, watched as he and Henny tortured her, and felt the crushing despair of believing she would not leave alive. But Cynthia was different. She refused to give in completely to hopelessness. She waited, watched, and when the opportunity came, she acted. On the 3rd day, Henny made a mistake. While tending to Cynthia, she left the keys within reach. Cynthia grabbed them, unlocked her restraints, and in a desperate fight managed to stab Hendy in the neck with an ice pick. Naked and chained, Cynthia ran from the trailer into the desert sun, screaming for help. A passerby saw her and called the police. That moment shattered the illusion of Ray's secrecy. When investigators entered the toy box, what they found left hardened detectives shaken. It was not just the instruments of torture or the meticulous layout. It was the sheer planning, the cold, methodical way Ray had designed his chamber. Every tool had a purpose. Every chain was placed for maximum control. The audio tapes revealed a mind that saw human beings not as people, but as objects to be broken and used. But the most chilling question remained: how many victims had there been? Authorities suspected Ray may have killed dozens, possibly over 60 women, during the decades he had his toy box. Some bones were found in the desert near Elephant Butte Lake, but without conclusive evidence, many cases remained unsolved. The idea that countless women vanished into the desert, their last moments spent in that trailer, haunts investigators to this day. When Ray was finally arrested, the trial became a spectacle. Survivors testified, their voices trembling as they relived their ordeals. Cindy Hendy, in exchange for a lighter sentence, described in detail the horrors she had witnessed and participated in. The public recoiled at the revelations, horrified that such atrocities could happen in modern America, hidden in plain sight. Ray never confessed fully. He hinted at more victims, teased investigators with fragments of information, but never gave the closure that families of missing women desperately needed. In 2002, before he could face a full reckoning, Ray died of a heart attack in prison. He took his secrets to the grave. For the survivors, life was never the same. Cynthia Vigil, the woman whose courage ended his reign, carried the trauma with her, but also the strength of knowing she fought back. Her escape ensured that Ray's crimes were exposed, sparing untold others from the fate he had planned. The desert keeps its secrets well. Even now, some believe bodies remain buried in the sands around Elephant Butte, waiting to be found. David Parker Ray is gone, but the toy box, its instruments cataloged and stored, remains one of the darkest monuments to human cruelty ever uncovered. And perhaps the most terrifying thought of all is this: without Cynthia's escape, the toy box killer might never have been caught at all. When police first entered David Parker Ray's trailer, silence hung heavy in the air. They expected to find a typical crime scene: blood, bodies, or at least signs of violence. Instead, they stepped into what looked like a twisted museum of suffering. The gynecologist's chair sat under the harsh light, straps dangling like lifeless snakes. Along the walls, neatly organized instruments gleamed. Clamps, saws, whips, gags, and chains, each placed as if part of a perverse collection. Investigators noticed that many tools weren't standard. They had been modified, engineered with meticulous precision. Some looked like surgical instruments. Others resembled medieval torture devices. And then there was the tape. A cassette recorder lay on the table. Curious, detectives pressed play. A man's voice filled the trailer, calm and cold. It was David Parker Ray, 4:12 minutes. He described in detail what a victim could expect once strapped into the chair. His words weren't shouted or frenzied. They were matter-of-fact, almost instructional. "Hello there, bitch. You're here against your will. You're going to be kept here for a while. I'm going to use you for sex and torture." The detectives stopped the tape midway. None of them could stomach the full recording. But one thing was clear: this wasn't just evidence. It was a blueprint of terror. The shock spread quickly through the department. Veteran officers, some with decades of experience, admitted they had never seen anything like it. They began piecing together how long this had been going on and how many victims there might be. Cynthia Vigil, still recovering, gave them her statement. Her body bore marks of restraints and injuries, proof of her ordeal. With trembling hands, she described the tape, the chair, the mirrors. She spoke of Ray's girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, who had helped restrain her and laughed during her torture. But she also spoke of Hendy's mistake, how the woman left the keys within reach. That sliver of opportunity saved Cynthia's life. Police wasted no time in arresting David Parker Ray and Cindy Hendy. Ray was stoic during questioning, speaking little, offering no remorse. Hendy, on the other hand, began to crack. Facing decades in prison, she made a decision that would change everything. She talked. Hendy admitted she had participated in Ray's crimes. She detailed how he would drug women, abduct them, and take them to the trailer. Sometimes, after days of torment, Ray would release the women. Other times, she claimed they were never seen again. Hendy described watching Ray dispose of evidence near Elephant Butte Lake. She admitted to helping him bury items in the desert sands. Her testimony painted a chilling portrait. Ray wasn't just a sadist. He was methodical. He planned each abduction, each act of torture. He recorded some sessions on video, though most tapes were either destroyed or never found. Henny suggested that Ray may have killed many of his victims, though she stopped short of naming exact numbers. The police began to fear the worst. If Ray had been operating for decades, how many women had vanished in his wake? They combed through missing persons reports, focusing on sex workers and vulnerable women in the area. Some names seemed to fit. Others remained shadows. One of the most haunting discoveries was a stash of personal items in Ray's possession: jewelry, clothing, trinkets. Investigators suspected these were trophies, keepsakes from his victims. Each item represented a life that had been shattered or erased. Families of missing women came forward, hoping for answers, but too often there was no way to prove the items belonged to their loved ones. Public reaction was explosive. Headlines screamed of the Toy Box Killer, a nickname coined by horrified reporters. Television crews descended on Truth or Consequences, a town that had been relatively quiet until now. Neighbors who once thought of Ray as just another mechanic stared in disbelief at the images broadcast nationwide: the trailer, the chair, the weapons. The trials that followed were chaotic. Prosecutors faced a daunting challenge. While they had Cynthia's testimony and Hendy's cooperation, they had little physical evidence directly tying Ray to murders. Many victims had no memory of their ordeal, likely due to drugs he administered. Without bodies, without conclusive DNA, the case relied heavily on survivor testimony. Still, the survivors' voices cut through the courtroom like knives. Cynthia Vigil stood tall as she recounted her escape. Her words were halting, painful, but resolute. She wanted the world to know what he had done, not just to her, but to countless others. Other women came forward, their stories eerily similar. They spoke of waking up restrained, of hearing Ray's voice on the tape, of enduring days of torture before being released in a haze. Some describe how they were dropped off on highways, dazed and disoriented, left to stumble back into a world that could never understand their silence. Cindy Hendy, testifying in exchange for a reduced sentence, gave jurors a glimpse inside Ray's twisted world. She described his fascination with control, his obsession with planning, his cold detachment during the acts. She admitted her own role, though she often painted herself as someone manipulated by Ray. Still, her words reinforced the picture of a man who had built his life around cruelty. Ray, throughout it all, remained largely emotionless. He sat in court with an air of detachment, as if the proceedings were nothing more than an inconvenience. He never admitted guilt, never confessed to the full scope of his crimes. For him, power lay in withholding the truth. Eventually, prosecutors secured convictions for kidnapping and sexual torture. Ray was sentenced to more than 200 years in prison. Cindy Hendy received a reduced sentence, but would serve nearly 2 decades. Yet, despite the verdict, a gnawing question remained. How many had he really killed? The FBI believed Ray may have murdered dozens, perhaps as many as 60 women. The desert around Elephant Butte was vast, a perfect graveyard for secrets. Some bone fragments were found, but not enough to link definitively to victims. Families of missing women held out hope, but closure never came. Ray himself, perhaps savoring the last vestiges of control, refused to say. In 2002, just 3 years after his arrest, David Parker Ray died of a heart attack in prison. For some, it was justice. For others, it was a cruel twist. He escaped the slow grind of decades behind bars, and he took with him the names of victims who may never be identified. For the survivors, his death was both a relief and a wound that would never fully heal. Cynthia Vigil continued to speak publicly, turning her trauma into testimony. She wanted the world to understand not just what had happened to her, but how evil can hide in plain sight, disguised as an ordinary neighbor, a mechanic, a man living quietly in a desert town. Even today, the legacy of David Parker Ray haunts truth or consequences. The toy box was dismantled, its contents preserved as evidence. But the memory of what happened inside can't be erased. Each year, new theories emerge. Some believe accomplices still walk free. Others fear the desert still holds bodies that will never be found. The toy box killer is gone, but the silence of the desert endures, heavy, unbroken, as if holding secrets too terrible to reveal. But the story of David Parker Ray leaves us with haunting questions. How many women truly fell victim to the toy box killer? Were there more accomplices who never faced justice? And will the New Mexico desert ever give up its secrets? What do you think? Was Ray responsible for far more deaths than investigators could ever prove? Back-end index pointing down, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the darkest and most mysterious true crime cases, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's coming next.